Y'all probably think the most expensive part of living in Charleston are those luxury house payments and those incredible waterfront views. But today, I'm exposing the hidden costs most newcomers don't even know about. I'm talking about hurricane insurance that costs more than your taxes, golf cart payments that rival your car lease, and beach parking that makes you wonder if the sand is made of gold. Here's the thing, your biggest cost to live in Charleston isn't even your mortgage payment. Today, I'm exposing every single hidden cost that most newcomers don't know about when they move to Charleston, South Carolina. So let's start with the reality that most homeowners get when they move to Charleston: sticker shock on their closing costs. I'm talking HOA transfer fees and tax bills you were not expecting. Standard closing costs include loan origination and escrows for your taxes and insurance. But there's an additional cost when you close a home here in Charleston, and that is deed stamps. Deed stamps are calculated as 3.7 times every $1,000 you spend on your house. So if you were to buy a house for around $600,000, your deed stamp tax is going to be about $2,200 that you weren't expecting. The other hidden costs on closings most people don't think about are HOA transfer fees. In some neighborhoods like Kiowa or Daniel Island or other big HOA style neighborhoods here in Charleston, the transfer fee can be from 0.25% of your purchase price up to 1% of your purchase price. This means if you were to buy a house for $1 million, you could end up spending $10,000 on an HOA transfer fee. This is a cost most people don't know about, but something that you need to know about before you get into a contract on one of those houses. But those same neighborhoods that end up having high HOA transfer fees are the same neighborhoods where you're gonna have another cost: golf cart costs, because everyone in that neighborhood is driving around to the beach or to the golf course in their own private golf cart. We'll get into that cost later in this video. So these are the only costs you need to know about when moving to Charleston. Let's take a ride and I'll show you some other costs that you wouldn't expect when you move here. So one of the biggest hidden surprises that most people don't get to know about until they move here is that property taxes are very affordable in Charleston. The average effective property tax rate is about 0.5%, and the national average is about 1%. So people are usually really happy to hear that their property taxes are about half what they were paying at their previous location. And that's one of the biggest benefits of costs here in Charleston. Now that does get offset by very high insurance costs like hurricane insurance, flood insurance, wind and hail insurance. We'll get into those costs later in this video. But first, let's talk about a cost that we all can relate to: the cost of groceries. So here we are at Whole Foods grocery store in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, and you're gonna be kind of surprised by the cost of groceries here. But before we get into that, if we haven't met yet, my name is Matt O'Neill. I'm a real estate expert here in Charleston, South Carolina. I've lived here for the last 20 years, relocating from up north. And at this point, I've helped over 5,000 families decide if the cost of living in Charleston is really worth it. You're gonna learn a lot about what it costs to live here in this video, but if you want the real truth about living in Charleston, I'm not talking about the fake Instagram stuff you see, then hit that subscribe button because I drop videos about what it's really like here in Charleston every week. All right, let's go check out these groceries. So here we are inside the Whole Foods in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, and we're talking about grocery prices. I'm gonna shoot straight with you. They're higher than what you would expect. Grocery prices here in Charleston are about 10% to 15% higher than the national average. I'm not talking California high, but they are higher. Now we've got some normal grocery options like Publix or Harris Teeter. And if you want a budget grocery option, there's the Food Lion, and those prices are about 10 to 15% lower than these other chains. And then the highest cost options are Whole Foods, where the cost might be about 30% higher. Now we got some specialty things like seafood stores and farmers markets, and these costs can be a little bit higher than even the grocery stores, but they are nothing compared to the cost of dining out downtown, which we'll get to later in this video. So for the average family of 4, groceries are gonna run you about $1,000 to $1,400 a month. One of the things you're gonna want when you live in Charleston is fresh seafood. We're right next to Shem Creek, where a lot of the shrimp is shipped in. The cost of a pound of shrimp is somewhere between $6 a pound all the way up to $15 a pound. depending on the size of the shrimp that you get and if it's local or if it's frozen. Let's talk about some other grocery costs as we get down further into the store. One of the ways that you can save money on groceries is using a Costco strategy. There's a Costco located in West Ashley and a Costco located in Mount Pleasant. That's where you buy your bulk items. But the basic items like milk is about $3 to $4 for a gallon. You got eggs, which are about $3 to $4 a dozen. You got bread, about $3 to $5 for a loaf of bread. Your ground beef, you're looking at that $5 to $8 a pound, and chicken is about $4 to $6 a pound. So those are your basic costs of groceries here in Charleston. And you are gonna save some money on the next cost, which is your gasoline. All right, we're heading over to a gas station to look at gas prices firsthand. One of the things we'll talk about on the way is the cost of car insurance. So the average cost of car insurance here in Charleston is about $1,900 to $2,200 a year. This is less than what you would expect in a place like New York or New Jersey. So it is pretty affordable here in Charleston. Now, Charleston is spread out, especially if you live in a place like Somerville, but then commute into work and maybe downtown. So that can increase your gas costs just because you have to drive far. But my opinion, and this is what I do, I help people move to great houses for a living. I recommend you pick a smaller house closer to your place of work so that you're not spending a lot of time looking at the windshield. Another factor that can increase your gas prices is rush hour traffic. If you are commuting and you happen to be stuck on a bridge like the Ravenel Bridge, it can be backed up and it could add 20 to 30 minutes to your commute time just because you're driving during a high traffic time. And the whole while, you're burning gas. Well, I've got some good news. Gas prices in Charleston typically run 10 cents to 20 cents per gallon below the national average. Here we are in Mount Pleasant, and unleaded gas is $2.79 a gallon, with premium at $3.65 a gallon. And if you look at national averages, here we are, it's August of 2025. We're doing pretty good on gas. Next up, we've got an unexpected cost you probably wouldn't think about if you don't live in a really cool city like Charleston. We'll get in the car and I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, so there's one more hidden cost that you probably wouldn't expect, and that's the cost of parking. If you commute downtown and you don't have your own parking spot, or you're just going down to eat, downtown parking is like $16 to $20 every single time you go down. Right now, we're heading over to Sullivan's Island Beach. Sullivan's Island has got free parking, but you might have to hunt for it. We're also gonna head over to Isle of Palms Beach. Isle of Palms Beach parking, there are meters, but if the meter spots are full, you might have to park in a lot, and those lots cost $20 a day. So $20 here and $20 there, these costs of parking can really add up. All right, so we've just gotten on to Sullivan's Island, which is the beach that my family and I just love to come to. There are not a bunch of tourists on this beach because they don't allow vacation rentals on Sullivan's Island. Parking on Sullivan's Island can be a little bit cumbersome in peak season. So here we are in the restaurant district. We can see right now, you can get a spot right in front of Home Team Barbecue, and that's awesome. But it's midday on a weekday, so that's not gonna be typical. Over here, we've got Poe's. There's a great parking lot there. And up and down this main street of Sullivan's Island, all of this parking is free. Another beach that you need to consider for parking is Folly Beach. Folly parking can be as low as $10 a day, but typically you're gonna spend about 20 bucks. There is free parking on Folly if you're willing to walk. There are some islands that are not free to park at and that you can't even get on. This would be Seabrook Island. To get to the beaches of Seabrook, you need to be a resident, or you need to have a good excuse about why you're getting on the island, such as I'm playing golf at one of the golf courses. Another island that you can't just easily jump onto is Kiowa. Now, there is a public beach at Kiowa, but if you want to get back to the private beaches at Kiowa, you need to be a resident at Kiowa, or again, be playing one of the Kiowa golf courses. That'll get you back there as well. Right in front of us here is historic Fort Moultrie. This is free beach parking. My family and I will park here a lot, but this parking lot can fill up. If you move to Charleston and you want some of these free parking spots on Sullivan's Island, is go a little bit earlier. If you come to the beach 8 a.m., 9 a.m., really before 10 a.m., you're gonna get a spot. But in peak summer season, if you're trying to find a parking spot after 10 a.m., it's gonna be pretty difficult. We are right here at Station 21. This is a really cool beach spot to walk up, and it's really neat kind of going over those dunes and getting back to the beach. Okay, let's talk about a hidden cost that might end up being one of your biggest expense items when you move to Charleston. That is dining out. Charleston is one of the best food cities in America. I'm not exaggerating. I love to travel. We travel everywhere. My wife and I, we love to eat at fine dining restaurants. Typically, when we go to a new city, we go to the nicest restaurant in that city, and we're sitting there and we're thinking, this doesn't compare to the average restaurants in Charleston. But there's a pretty hefty price tag. So here we are on Sullivan's. Just down here is the Obstinate Daughter. To me, that's the best restaurant on the beach. We got a Mex One here, which is a great spot for a Mexican food. Home Team Barbecue is such a cool scene, great barbecue. And then Poe's across the street says they have the best burger in America. I don't know if it's the best burger in America, but it's a pretty good burger. Over here, we've got Longboard, which has got decent fare, and then the Dive Bar Dunleavy's, which is, you're not going there for the food. The other food scene that's really big in Charleston is not just here on the beach, it's downtown. And you're gonna spend quite a bit when you go out to eat downtown, but that's where the best restaurants are. You go to Hall's Chop House, for example, a cut of steak is gonna be about $80 up to $180, depending on if it's dry aged and how long they've been dry aging that steak, and if it's Wagyu beef. Now, it'll be one of the best steaks you've ever had. Just incredible restaurant after incredible restaurant. So many James Beard Award winners. One of our favorite restaurants is a place called Fig. It's F-I-G. It stands for Food is Good, and I can promise you the food there is very good. Another restaurant we really like is Husk, and there's always a new upcoming restaurant. But if you're going out downtown and you're going to one of these really nice restaurants, don't be surprised if you take 5 or 6 people and your bill is over $1,000 when you leave. That's just kind of the way it is. So if you're trying to budget for eating really, really well, you might have to budget a lot. Now, there is a way. We've got 4 kids and we can't always afford to go out downtown. So there is a way to eat on a budget. And one of the things you're gonna wanna look at is happy hour specials. There's a lot of budget-friendly options, and I'm not just talking about Chick-fil-A, which Chick-fil-A is one of my kids' favorites, but in Mount Pleasant, we've got a place called Ty's Roadhouse. Really good food, and your average plate is about $20, and it's really good. You can get downtown, and there's some budget-friendly options on the north side of the peninsula, not on the south side of the peninsula, but further north. There are some great places downtown as well. And of course, West Ashley's got some budget-friendly options. Other places in Mount Pleasant have got some budget-friendly options. So you can get good food without going fine dining, and it could be affordable. We're usually budgeting between $800 and $1,000 a month for an eating out budget. You add this on top of the groceries and on top of the housing costs that we've already talked about, and then you add in the insurance costs, which we're gonna get to, and it can get kind of pricey. But the next cost we're gonna talk about as we get out of this vehicle is your second vehicle that most people don't realize they're really gonna want once they move here. So there's another really big cost of living in Charleston, and it's your second vehicle, your golf cart. Come on, I'll take you for a ride. We'll talk about the cost of owning a golf cart. Right now, we're in the Old Village of Mount Pleasant, and Old Village is definitely one of those neighborhoods where you're gonna want a golf cart. It's that kind of a lifestyle. The public elementary school is in the neighborhood. We often will golf cart our kids to school, and most families do. The public middle school is also in the neighborhood. It's something where kids ride their bikes to school every single day, but it's also just the lifestyle to ride your golf cart around the neighborhood. Golf cart costs can get expensive. The nicest, newest golf carts can cost north of $20,000, but there's some affordable options as well. You can get refurbished golf carts in the $6,000 to $8,000 range, and that's a way that you can get that cost down. Now, there's some things you have to consider. One, these things are going to be driven on the streets. They have to have headlights, they have to have safety belts because they are actually vehicles, and they need a registration, and they need insurance. So all these costs can add up. Insurance costs for golf carts can be in the $300 to $600 a year if you're planning to drive your golf cart on public roads, which you probably will. DMV registration is really affordable. It's only $5. But there's another cost, and that's battery replacements. You're gonna need a new battery every 3 to 5 years, and it's gonna run you about $800 to $1,500. Also, as you're storing your golf cart, you're gonna need some garage space for it. And if it's an electric golf cart, you're gonna have to plug it in. This can increase your electric bill by about $20 a month. You'll use your golf cart more than you think. Just going to friends' houses, going to the grocery store, and cruising around the neighborhood. It's gonna be something that you'll love having. As we talk about a golf cart, another thing that you might start to think about if you're a golfer is the cost of golf. Now, I love to golf, and many of my clients move to Charleston because of the great year-round golf lifestyle. You can golf in Charleston literally 12 months a year. Your public courses can be as low as $50 a round, but they can go up to $80 a round. Some nicer golf courses in Charleston can command $200 a round or more. Now, of course, there are private memberships. There are golf clubs such as Dunes West and Rivertown, which can give you a semi-membership, meaning you pay like a $3,000 to $5,000 membership fee, and then for $300 to $600 per month, you can golf all you want without having to pay greens fees. But if you want a fully private golf club membership like Kiowa, or a club like Seabrook, or Briars Creek, or the Charleston Country Club, these can have initiation fees of $100,000 or more. Another private membership would be like Daniel Island. Awesome golf courses. Bulls Bay is another private golf membership that you can get, but you're gonna spend about $100,000 plus just on the initiation fees. And then you've got other fees such as tipping your caddy, tipping the cart guys, and eating at the restaurants at those resorts. So that's what it's gonna cost for golf. Now we're coming up to one of my favorite costs in Charleston, and that is the cost of owning a boat. If you live on the water, you might as well enjoy it. So let's talk about the cost of boat ownership here in Charleston. All right, here we are doing one of my favorite Charleston activities, boating. Now, my wife and I bought a boat years ago, and we kept it right here on Shim Creek. That was a 21-foot center console. Right now we're in a 23-foot center console. We bought that one new for $44,000, but this is years ago. So you can buy a new boat in that $40,000 to $60,000 range. If you wanted to get a really nice boat like a Scout, you're probably looking north of $100,000. You can get refurbished boats, used boats, that 2020 age range, in the maybe $30,000 range or more. But then you got other costs associated with boat ownership. This is why I love what my wife and I are doing now. We no longer own our boat. We're part of the Quarter Deck Boat Club. I'll talk about how affordable that is compared to what boat costs are here in just a moment. But let's talk about what it costs if you want to own your own boat. You've got boat insurance, plus you've got your registration, plus you've got your maintenance, and then you got your storage. So the most expensive part of owning a boat is, one, buying the boat. The second most expensive part of owning a boat, that's gonna be your storage. You can have dry stack storage, about $500 a month, but all the way up to $1,200 a month. You're also gonna have wet boat storage, which is gonna be a little bit more expensive. That would be like having a slip on the water. Now, if you have a slip on the water, there's gonna be a cost of owning that boat, and the cost is gonna be painting the bottom and getting rid of all the barnacles that are gonna grow on the bottom of that boat. So the cost of a bottom paint is about $2,000 to $4,000, and you're probably gonna end up doing that every year if your boat sits in the water instead of dry storage. Maintenance costs of a boat can be brutal. Engine service is $500 to $1,000 every single time. You're gonna need to do that at least once a year, and hopefully not more. And then you've got just ongoing repair costs of owning a boat. Sometimes things break when you own a boat, and that can cost thousands. As a general rule of thumb, I recommend you budget 10% of the cost of the boat for annual maintenance. So if you've got a $50,000 boat, that would be budgeting about $5,000 a year for maintenance. plus you have your storage costs. Now, let's talk about how we can do this affordably. So the smartest way to boat in Charleston is with the Quarter Deck Boat Club. My wife and I joined the boat club this year. We love it. I think they've got over 100 boats in their fleet, 5 different locations: Old Village, West Ashley, downtown Charleston, Johns Island, and one other place. I can't remember it off the top of my head. The cost is only $550 a month, and you can basically take a boat out any day you want from any of these locations. Sure, in the most peak seasons, you do need to plan ahead and make sure your boat is reserved for a weekend day. But if you want to go on any weekday, there's always a boat. Now that $550 a month, you don't have to pay an initiation fee, you don't have to pay storage costs, you don't have to buy a new boat, you don't have to pay for maintenance. That covers everything. Their boats are typically like this one, in the 21 foot to 23 foot center console range. And right here you can see this one has got a wakeboard bar. My kids love to go tubing. So the boat club will throw tubes on the boat. I think it's $20 each time you want a tube. They'll throw beer on the boat. They'll throw drinks for the kids on the boat. They'll throw fishing lines and fishing bait. They'll put a wakeboard on the boat with a wakeboard tow rope. All of this is so convenient, and the cost is so much less than owning your own boat. In my opinion, it's the way to go. Now, you've probably been wondering about utility costs. But before we get into that, we're going to talk about the cost of insurance. And I'm talking about homeowners insurance, hurricane insurance, and flood insurance. These costs are probably going to surprise you. So homeowners insurance in Charleston has been getting more expensive in the recent years. This is because there's been many named storms in the United States. Now, these named storms have caused some insurance carriers to pull out of Charleston. That means there's fewer carriers around to insure Charleston, and that's driving insurance costs up. A typical home in Charleston, maybe that $400,000 to $500,000 home, you're talking about $2,500 a year in insurance. But that's not the only insurance costs that you're going to need. You've also got flood insurance costs. I always recommend getting flood insurance even if you're not in a flood zone. So flood insurance usually runs about $500 a year, but if your house is built below the floodplain, because maybe it's an older home, that flood insurance could be as high as $10,000 a year. So you're gonna need to look at what is my flood insurance costs before you decide to buy a house. The next type of insurance you're gonna wanna look at is wind and hail insurance. If you live south of Highway 17, this would be Mount Pleasant, West Ashley, downtown, or any of the beaches, wind and hail insurance is gonna be required if you have a home loan. Wind and hail insurance runs you about $1,500 a year. So this is where your insurance costs really start to ratchet up. Another surprising insurance cost most people don't think about when they think of Charleston is earthquake insurance. Most people don't know this, but Summerville, South Carolina is on an earthquake fault line. In fact, there was just a small earthquake in Summerville last month. It didn't do any damage, but there was a major earthquake in Charleston in the 1800s that did a ton of damage. So I always recommend getting earthquake insurance. It's really affordable. It's only about $300 or $400 a year, but it's going to protect one of your most expensive assets, your home, in the case of a major earthquake. So in total, your insurance costs are going to run you about $5,000 to $15,000 a year, just depending on how expensive your home is and what type of flood zone or wind and hail coverage you're gonna be in. And sometimes you can get it for less. Maybe a house in Summerville, your total insurance costs are only $3,000 a year. But when you combine that with taxes that are typically half the cost of property taxes in other areas of the country, it about evens out. So you don't actually end up spending more between insurance and taxes. It's about the same as what you typically would spend in other parts of the country. Now let's talk about utility costs. Utility costs in Charleston can be pretty pleasantly surprising. The one thing people don't think about is you don't really need to heat your home that often. So you don't have a furnace and you don't have heating costs most of the year. But that gets offset by the fact that you're gonna need to cool your house down when it gets to be 95 and humid. And so your biggest utility costs are gonna be in the summertime. Typically, you're gonna be spending $200 to $400 a month in the summer, but in the winter, it could be less than $100 a month to heat and cool your house. Another utility cost that can surprise you is the cost of your water bill. Now, because it's so hot, you're gonna need to water your grass in the summertime. This can push your water bill up depending on how green you want that grass. I've seen water bills as high as $300 a month. Most people are gonna spend in the $150 to $200 a month range on their water bill in the summertime. In the wintertime, when you're not watering your grass as much, this cost is gonna go down. Another cost is gonna be your internet and cable. This is pretty standard, it's pretty normal in Charleston compared to most parts of the country. You can get high-speed internet for about $100 a month here in Charleston. Cable, you really don't need it anymore. Most people are using YouTube TV and subscription services like Netflix, so that's not really gonna be a big cost for you to consider. So in total, when we're looking at our utility costs, they're gonna be in the 300 to 500 range. The max side in the summertime, maybe you're talking 500 to 700 a month on total utilities. All right, so look, we've talked about all the hidden costs about living in Charleston, from some crazy HOA fees to high insurance costs, utility costs, parking, fun things like boats and golf carts. And if you add it all up, the costs are about $3,000 to $5,000 per month more than your monthly mortgage payment. So is the cost worth it to you? That's something that you need to ask yourself. Now at Matt O'Neill Real Estate, I've helped 5,000 families make that decision to move to Charleston. It may be right for you and it may not. If you're thinking about making the move and you want to talk to an expert, me, about what it could look like for you and what the cost could really be for your specific situation, send me an email, sales@mattoneillteam.com, or call me at 843-619-0401. Now the costs have been really cool, but not every neighborhood is created equal. Make sure you stick around for the next video where I rank the best and worst places to live in Charleston, and I'm excited for your trip here when you come in town next.